friends, welcome back. My name is Silver Slayer. I post silver videos every single day of the week, so make sure you subscribe and definitely click the bell so you immediately get notified anytime anything important happens across the world. Since it all affects the price of silver, I'm your one-stop shop. You'll never miss a beat. You are definitely in the loop. We're going to be doing something a little different today. I always like to try to make my video better than the last one. In this video, I've never really done a live reaction, especially of the LBMA's conference on silver's role in the green economy, so I'll be able to stop, throw in my 2 cents instead of reading the transcript from this or just showing the video. I think this will be a little more immersive, and I feel like it'll just be a better video in general. So let me know if you guys enjoy this format that I'm doing. Also, if you guys wanted to purchase silver, I have some deals for you, and actually new deals tomorrow as well. Right now, we have the Slayer special. Only my audience gets a deal like this. American Eagles, $4.99 over spot, minimum of 100. And if you guys didn't want that deal, I have other ones. I also have constitutional silver, aka junk silver, for only $3 over spot. And new ones tomorrow, buy.slayer@gmail.com. If you guys want those, I'll talk to you on the phone. You could text me, email me. I will make sure you guys are all set up. And yeah, this conference has potential to be very interesting and very controversial. See, there's an elephant in the room that I feel like nobody wants to say but needs to be said. We have people like Phillips Baker on the panel from Hecla Mining. He knows about the silver supply deficit. Everyone does. This is from the Silver Institute, which posts the numbers publicly annually every year, showing that we have record-breaking supply deficits, hundreds of millions of ounces in the red, and something needs to be done because we cannot keep up with this growing demand as we go green. So I'm curious to see if anyone's going to say anything about this or even throw out the possibility of what if we can't meet the demand, or what would that look like in 3, 4, 5 years if we cannot keep up with this growing demand? Where would the silver come from? Mining innovation? Where is it going to come from? Recycling? Are they going to bring up recycling? So there is opportunity for people to speak up. Will they? Probably not. Probably it would be because of politics, right? Everyone wants to keep their job, and this is a situation I don't think is even possible. So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about it. I'm gonna try not to pause as much as possible and let it just play through naturally. But if there's some key points, obviously I'll pause and branch off of those. So grab some popcorn, kick your feet up, and let's dive into this.
I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Michael DiRienzo and his esteemed panel to talk about silver and its role in the green economy. So with no further ado, over to you, Michael.
I'd love to speak at something like this. I have no stage fright whatsoever. Public speaking is my thing. I love it.
Okay.
Because of my, I make videos.
First of all, thank you. I'd like to thank the LBMA and the LPPM for this great invitation to speak before you on this panel discussion on what we and many in the world consider to be one of the more critical minerals to the energy transition, and that is silver. So when it comes to silver, countless civilizations have relied on silver, and they've revered the white metal, and that continues to this very day. Scientists are constantly finding new applications for silver, and in many cases, that leads to a greener economy. So what makes silver so valuable is its unique combination of characteristics which are not found in any other element. It's malleable, it's ductile, and it's an excellent reflector of light. Silver is the superior metal as a conductor of electricity. It's very strong for its weight and has many more valuable qualities. So finding all these properties in a single package is one of nature's most remarkable gifts.
It's magic.
And that leads us into today's discussion on silver's role in the green economy. And we're going to get into the various factors where silver fits in and where silver will help pave the way to the energy transition. So we're all fortunate here today to have Phillips Baker, the president and CEO of Hecla Mining Company, and also the chairman of the Silver Institute, join us, as well as our technical director, Trevor Keel, who's based in London. But nonetheless, I'd like to start with a couple polling questions, if we could. So, what is the percentage increase in demand for silver from the photovoltaic sector over the last decade?
PV
Is
cells.
it A, 50%?
Something else takes over.
The global silver market will experience its third consecutive annual structural market deficit this year. So by the end of this year, the combined market deficit, including 21, 22, and 23, will be A, 237 million ounces, B, 405 million ounces,
Probably
or C, 630 million ounces.
Well, 2021, 22, and 23. It'd probably be B. Yeah, B. Not exact. It's probably
We have
closer
some
to
very
C.
astute folks in the room who know their silver business. The answer is indeed B.
Yeah.
And that's quite
Hundreds.
remarkable for silver.
Hundreds of millions
And
of ounces.
we project another market deficit
Yep.
this year as well. So
Another one.
moving on,
Record-breaking
let's
supply
go to
deficits.
some Q&A.
Think
And I'd
about
like
in
to start
four-
off with Trevor
Sorry.
Keel. Trevor, what is the proportion of silver industrial demand that feeds into the green economy?
So, yeah, when thinking about that question, you've got to think about where silver is used and where those applications actually feed into clean and green technology. So, obviously, the first one, as you all know, is the photovoltaic sector. You've seen there's been massive growth in that over recent years, which is important for the metal and important for the evolution of silver's story. But there are lots of other applications as well. I suppose the second largest would be the increasing use of silver in electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And I think we'll probably cover that in a bit more detail.
I'm gonna pause real quick. So what I was saying, I'll try not to talk over them. I know that's probably pretty annoying. The polls, yes, the second one in particular, the supply deficits are insane, and this is a prime example of how unrealistic it is for us to go green. Like he said, 10 years ago, solar panels, photovoltaics, PV cells, solar panels, very small percentage. But think about in a couple of years, there will be a new invention as we go in this new digital technological era that's going to probably overtake solar panels someday in the next couple of decades. So if we're already 405 million ounces in the red, think about in 2027, 2028, how many, will it be 1 billion ounces? Because, I mean, demand exceeded 1.21 billion ounces this year. Production, which we have Phillips Baker in front of us, or this is Trevor. Phillips Baker's from Hecla Mining going to be talking. He is the CEO of Hecla Mining, so he should know what production realistically could be with mining innovation, if that's possible. Silver's a byproduct. That means it's found by accident. No one's really looking for it. So to sit here, and I hope they bring this up, to sit here and say, oh, yeah, we have enough silver to go green, especially given those statistics they just showed, it would be silly to say that, or at least say it's highly unlikely. But just to sit there comfortably say, yeah, it's possible, that I think is very suspicious, at least to admit that it will be some type of challenge. So I'm hoping they bring this up, because if I was sitting on that panel, I would be bringing it up. If I was in the audience, I would ask that question, at least after, and I'd interview it on my channel. So maybe I should start going to these types of panels, like Andy Schechter or something. But yeah. Anyways, let's keep moving on.
Tell later. Then there are a series of peripheral applications as well. So silver is found in wind infrastructure. It's found in nuclear infrastructure. It's smaller quantities, but still sort of helping to generate clean energy. And then the final example, which is something I often talk about and quite passionate about, is the use of catalysts as well. Catalysts are very important in the green economy to improve how reactions run and the speed at which reactions take place. So silver is an important chemical catalyst as well, which also adds to recycled quantities of silver. So I think it's very difficult to give a number, but I think overall you could probably say at least a third of industrial demand goes directly into green technologies.
And Michael, let me just add,
Yes.
the overall silver market is a 1.2 billion ounce market. That's how much is consumed annually now. And it's a dramatic increase over what it was a decade ago, 20 years ago. It's quite remarkable because of all the different applications that you have for silver.
Well, that's a great lead into a question I have for you, Phil. I remember back in looking through old world silver surveys that we produce on an annual basis and seeing that 1999 was a peak for silver's use in photography. And as we went through the early 2000s, silver use began to drop precipitously, obviously with the advent of digital photography. But when you look at demand now, especially on the industrial side, it's much higher now than it was then. And that's because of all these new innovations. That's because the scientists, the drivers of innovation are getting there. But you must remember those days. And
Yeah, when something falls off, another picks up, and we're going into a new digital era, technological era. AI is going to drive silver demand because of the chips used for AI technology as well.
I'd love to hear your anecdotes about some folks in the market or on the Wall Street saying, well, that's it for silver.
Yeah, so certainly I received a lot of that in my early days with the company. I've been with Hecla for 22 years. And what I guess I am struck by is that over the course of the last 20 years, silver's use in photography has gone essentially to zero, and it was roughly a third of all the demand. And yet, the demand for silver is up, I guess, about 25% in total. If you were to take out photography, the demand for silver is up close to, it's close to doubling where it was back in the turn of the century.
That's interesting. So, Trevor, I have a question for you. You had mentioned electric vehicles, and I do want to highlight to the audience, we put out a series of reports throughout the year called Market Trend Reports. We've done one on solar. We did one a year ago on automotives, and at the time we were looking at about a 45 to 50 million ounce market for silver in all automobiles. But with the revolution of EVs, hybrid vehicles, and soon to be autonomous driving, the silver content will increase greatly, and it's because of the context. Can you expand on that?
Sure. Yes.
Did you know that every automobile company by the year 2030 will be electric? Think about that. Every single one. Think about EV demand by the year 2030. I feel like EV demand or silver's use in EVs will overtake photovoltaics. EVs are going to be the number one, in my opinion, the number one use case for silver, overtaking photovoltaics. And that's because of how many EVs there's going to be. And if you think about this is actually one point against it. Solar panels have a very short half-life compared to an electric vehicle getting re-scrapped, right? But a lot of solar panels are thrown away in landfills and never to be recycled. But EVs, if you put silver in that EV is going to be on the road for who knows how many years, especially now since they're much more efficient. They last longer before it gets thrown away in a landfill or to be recycled. But I know the only thing they can do is try to cut down the amount of silver in each EV, but nothing can replace silver, like you heard him say in the beginning. It's a magical metal. And we're talking about elements on the periodic table. This stuff isn't even made in the Earth's crust. It comes here from asteroids and meteors. So in the entire universe, there's no other just random substance that's better than silver. It's irreplaceable. All we can try to do is cut down the amount of silver we use in these applications or find a better way to recycle. Mining innovation, there's only so much silver in the Earth's crust, so that's not an option unless they want to take our silver. So I just wanted to just highlight that point.
It's an interesting part of the market, and the guys at Metals Focus did a bit of work for us a couple of years ago about trying to actually analyze how much additional silver is found in EVs. And that, by its very nature, is a very tricky thing to do. You know, silver is spread out all through a vehicle, so it's quite difficult to get hard and fast numbers. But I think as a sort of a general rule of thumb, if you take a standard ICE vehicle, there's probably up to double the amount of silver in a battery electric vehicle. So obviously, as the pool of electric vehicles grows, which you just have to step out onto the street to see that's happening. You know, the silver demand associated with that is going to grow. So yeah, all of that data is available for you to take a look at on the Silver Institute website if you're interested.
And you know, an interesting anecdote on that is the fact that in the first quarter of 2023, over 305,000 electric vehicles were sold in the United States, which represents a 56% increase over the same quarter from 2022. So it's quite striking. I mean, there's really no going back, and silver will help lead that way. Phil, lot of talk goes.
Here we go. So they just talked about how much silver we're going to need, how it's doubled in the last year, whatever. Now we're going into mine supply. So if they don't bring this up, there's definitely something suspicious going on. They're purposely not bringing it up, the possibility or how hard it would become to meet this type of demand in the next 5-10 years.
And we've heard it at the Silver Institute, and I know you've heard it from investors and so forth. But with the supply, will we have enough silver down the road to facilitate this green transition and these products and these applications that use silver?
Well, sure, we will absolutely have enough silver, but it's not going to.
And by the way, I knew he was going to say that because I covered an interview he did a couple of days ago saying this and how contradicting it was, because everything he was talking about is how impossible it is, but then he goes and says this. So I'm curious to hear what he says here.
It's going to come from mines.
He just said mines. That's ridiculous, by the way.
And what I mean by that is the growth in the demand for silver is so great, and it's growing so fast that the mines themselves are not able to keep up with it. 880 million ounces is about how much the mines produce. Hecla has the 11th largest silver mine in the world, and it only produces 10 million ounces.
Exactly. He's contradicting his point exactly. How is he going to say we have enough silver, but his mine only produces 10 million, when he said earlier demand exceeded 1.2 billion ounces? And on a good year, we put out around 880 million ounces, but most silver's thrown away within a couple of years. Why is he saying? Well, I know why, but it's just, he's contradicting. You can even tell. Look at his body posture. Look at the way he's saying this. He's not confident in saying this is, and he said it so casually. Yes, we have enough silver. We don't.
So when you think about just using photovoltaics and it growing at 10, 20, 30 million more ounces a year.
And he's about to contradict himself the rest of this. Everything he's about to say is contradicting himself of saying we can do this. He's about to tell himself, he's telling himself why we can't. It's so weird.
Then you need our largest mine. You need another one of the mines that's as large as our largest one, and it's the largest in the United States. You need 2 or 3 of those. We're just not finding those deposits, nor are we able to develop those deposits fast enough. And ultimately, for the mine supply to grow, you need higher prices to be able to generate the sort of returns required for that investment. So there is going to be a squeeze that happens where the ounces are going to have to come from above ground stocks that are sort of hidden.
Okay. And that leads me to a question.
And ironically, the LBMA, which is holding this conference, came out with the COMEX, by the way, and the LME, which is the London Metals Exchange, all saying their reserves are near empty. They publicly came out and said that. I covered their public statements earlier this year as well. So he said they need to come from reserves or somewhere, but the reserves are empty. You said mining in the Earth's crust, there's only so much, it's hard to come out, So, come on, guys.
It is sort of a true and false question, but total silver supply, which is roughly 1 billion ounces, has that really steadily grown over the last 25 years, or is that a misnomer?
No, it's been very, very flat.
Okay.
It is.
Well, that's interesting. I'm going to go back to Trevor here. I'm going to leave that slide on the stage. But speaking of the growth in PV installations, which has obviously helped support silver demand over the years, and looking forward, what are the challenges in the PV sector, whether it be thrifting or others?
Sure. I mean, obviously, the last couple of years have been incredibly strong for demand for silver. In PV, I think last year it was 140 million ounces. This year, predicted to be 160 million ounces. And technologies are changing, so there will be challenges. Now, obviously, you mentioned thrifting. Thrifting happens to any technology, and it always has through history. Whenever you have a technology with a relatively costly material, there will always be efforts to minimize the amount of that material. However, thrifting, you can only thrift so far. And frankly, most of the thrifting in the technologies that are utilized at the moment is probably happened. New technologies are coming on stream that actually utilize more silver, which is very interesting. And those technologies will then also go through that thrifting process. So you have this constant sort of battle between thrifting and higher demand. The one thing that's probably worth mentioning is quite often people say, well, at some point soon, silver is gone from photovoltaics. It's just going to be replaced by copper. And that really isn't true. There isn't a drop-in replacement for silver.
There we go. He said it. I wanted to wait a couple seconds after he when I was about to pause it. Nothing can replace silver. Copper is a close second in terms of electrical conductivity, but it's not even worth it. It would actually be much more efficient to just stick with silver. A lot of people don't understand this. They say, well, silver can be replaced. It can't. And you're hearing it straight from Phillips Baker. Or Trevor Keel, sorry.
But silver is the best material for metallization in solar cell technologies. Copper can be used, but the whole process of utilizing copper in this market is actually fairly complicated, and it takes a lot of capital cost to make those changes. And I think most analysts don't think that the copper is going to begin to encroach in any way for at least 5 or 6 years from now. So I think the near future for silver is incredibly bright, but there are of course always some challenges on the horizon, but I don't think we'll be seeing them anytime soon.
And Michael, I think it's worth people realizing in order to generate a gigawatt of photovoltaic energy, you need at this point something in excess of 500,000 ounces of silver.
Incredible.
And so you think about how rapidly we're trying to grow the photovoltaic energy generation, and that so that growth rate that we've seen for photovoltaics has just started, and yes, there'll be thrifting, but you're going to have ever more units, so it's exciting time for silver.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time indeed.
Yeah, sorry, Mike, just probably worth sort of mentioning, the growth of PV installations in China has been absolutely incredible over the last...
Yeah, China's the largest consumer for silver, by the way. Then they didn't even bring up military yet. It takes 500 ounces of silver in a single Tomahawk missile. And then we have 2 wars going on, and possibly a 3rd war. We're not going to go into that, like Guyana stuff, but where are we going to get it from? And he said something very contradicting. He said the immediate challenges for silver are very high, especially since copper can't replace it. But then at the end of his sentence, he said the challenges won't be here anytime soon. If you guys didn't catch that, I'll even replay it real quick. He says it right at the end. He says the challenges won't be here for anytime soon. He uses the word anytime soon, even though he just said right before that the immediate challenges are hard because we can't find anything to replace silver, and it's
Time indeed.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. Just probably worth sort of mentioning. The growth of PV installations in China has been absolutely incredible over the last decade.
Grow the photovoltaic, so that growth rate, It's
Probably worth sort of mentioning, the growth of PV installations in China has been absolutely incredible over the last decade, 12 years. We've gone from, I think you mentioned gigawatts, 3 gigawatts of installed capacity to over 300 now, just within the space of a decade. And this year is going to break all records. And the other, I think, kind of thing that's worth mentioning is the IEA has recently stated that they believe that electricity generation via solar is actually going to overtake electricity generation via coal by 2027, which is an incredibly rapid increase.
It is incredible when you look at, I'll just take in the United States, for example, in California and in Massachusetts, you cannot build a home with traditional coal-fired power. Everything has to be solar power. There are mandates at the federal, local, and state level in the United States that mandate a certain percentage of the vehicles by 2030 and 2035 be completely clean, EVs. So that's going to play a role in silver, and it's going to play a role in the whole demand structure for silver. That leads me to a question from the audience, which is not related directly to our topic today, but it has a lot to do with silver as an investment and the future of silver as an investment, as its duality as a precious metal and an industrial metal. And Phil, I'd like to ask you this. Do you believe there is value in holding silver in reserves portfolio? And if so, how much? And can you elaborate? I mean, that's pretty much asking a leading question.
Yeah. This is the wolf guarding the hen house. But look, of course, there's value in having a position in silver. And I know yesterday people were talking about it in the session, and they were trying to predict when you should have that exposure. Well, at some point, I think the short answer is at some point. There's going to be a realization of the fact that we're having this growing deficit in silver and the growing need for higher prices in order.
There we go. I'm glad he said that. It's one of the first things he said that I think he's honest about, completely honest about. Shout out to, Phillips Baker. I just, like he just said, it's the fox guarding the hen house. Of course, silver is extremely undervalued. Of course, it's heavily manipulated. And I do think by the year, and I've been saying this for years now, silver, I feel like, will hit triple digits in the year 2026, maybe 2027. I think by then, the supply deficit, like he's saying right now, will be blatantly obvious. It will be unhideable. You cannot sweep it under the rug by then. And silver's true value, its critical role it plays in the economy, especially how far along we'll be in this Green New Deal, will be obvious. And I think no form of manipulation will be able to stop the fundamentals of the growing supply deficit by then, which is exactly what he's saying. So you can call me a silver pumper all you want, but the channels that are silver pumpers are saying silver is going to explode to $3,000 by January 2024. That's a silver pumper. That's unrealistic. That's misleading the audience, which is giving them false hope, which could also, in return, affect how they're investing, and that could be just dangerous. So, no, I don't think it will, and it shouldn't, because if it did, that'd be very bad. That means it would crash lower, because that's extreme overbought territory. That's not healthy. The price needs to stabilize along the way. But, yeah.
To have more silver come out. How much to have in your portfolio? That's a whole nother question.
Well, this leads me to another question here, and I think it's great. You addressed it briefly, but I think a lot of people are concerned about that question with respect to silver demand and will we be able to meet this transition.
There we go. I'm glad he brought it back up. I bet these guys hate me, by the way. Like, if they've ever come across my videos, like, they probably hate me because I'm so, I don't beat around the bush. I call out the BS when I see it. And I feel like they need that. I feel like people need to. Don't just speak quietly on the sidelines Say it publicly. Say it like a man. Say it straight to their face. Because realistically, and I'm glad this guy brought that up. Because if I was there, I would be asked. That's why I'll never get invited to a conference like this, because I'm too controversial, because I speak the truth. I won't just settle for this unspoken, hidden thing where there's an elephant in the room, but nobody wants to say it. No.
So, can you elaborate on some of the above ground stocks that are sources of silver that will help make up for this shortfall in mining?
Look, you think about the amount of silver that has been mined in history. So, you're never going to run out of silver. So the people that make those comments, I think they don't understand that. But what is certainly clear.
The LBMA, which is the one holding this conference, literally said earlier this year that their reserves are near empty, quote unquote, near empty. Most silver's thrown away. If it was gold, of course, most gold that gets dug up is recycled, reused, rescrapped, because it's used for things like necklaces and earrings and watches and vaults in a bank. So it gets recycled and remelted into more watches and necklaces. Silver is used mainly in industry, so that means it's thrown away, never to be recycled. So to just say that we have enough when you see year after year record-breaking supply deficits and all of the biggest LBMA, COMEX, the two biggest, they came out and said this. That's why that guy asked him a second time. I don't see how he's so confident in this and to say we just don't understand. The numbers just don't add up. And why would the U.S. military raid silver stocks or silver stockpiles if there was just plenty of silver to go around? Why would, I don't want to like make an accusation, because I don't know exactly, and I'm not gonna pretend I know exactly how much there is. But all of the data I've done over the years, all of the different sources, all of the different mining, mining data, the output, how much is dug up, how much is used, how much is recycled, how, what the ratios are moving forwards, what the demand is going to look like. It's just, it doesn't add up. So I don't know. I just the way he says it so confidently, like, oh, these guys, there's plenty of silver. There is? Where's it at? Where's it at? Most silver that is around, these people aren't selling it, right? And these exchanges don't have it. Where's it at then? Sitting in a landfill somewhere, never to be recycled?
Clear is it takes a much higher price to see those ounces be mobilized. Significantly higher prices. People buy the silver and they put it in a drawer, and it's really not thought of until the prices go up high enough for that silver to get mobilized.
Interesting. Okay, so we have another question on that. We have a question from the audience, and I think it's a little difficult to answer. Like, what will silver demand be by 2030?
Ooh, nice. Good question.
I think it's going to grow and grow and grow. I mean,
Well, look, you've got.
Do you think it would exceed? I'd probably say, I don't know, because that's an interesting question because of so many different variables, like demand, including, or I guess if you just look at demand, don't incorporate like investment demand. Or I guess you should, but then like recycling and other factors. I don't know. Demand exceeded 1.21 billion ounces this year. We're going to see another record-breaking supply deficit. So, like, would it be 1.5 billion ounces? Who knows? is, who knows? I mean, there's going to be new inventions. I mean, that's a long time. You know, it's 2023, so 2030. Think about 7 years ago, where photography still had a large place in silver. So there's going to be a new invention, especially with AI nowadays. It's gonna take much more silver. So it really is just a shot in the dark. Anyone who says, "Oh, there's no way it will pass 1.5 billion ounces," they're speaking too confidently. Because I bet 7 years ago, if you would say what would be the demand in 2023, not knowing how fast EVs are going to grow or solar panels, it's a shot in the dark.
You think about the photovoltaic growth, at the
Good point.
rate that it's growing, you will see that double. So now all of a sudden, silver used in photovoltaic is going to go from about 10, 12% to closer to 25, and maybe even as high as 30% of total demand for silver. So the outlook is unlike any that the silver industry has ever had. So when people think about silver and they're looking in the past,
Right.
they're
You can't.
not really what they've experienced in the past. They're not really looking at where silver is today, where it's this key energy transition metal, something that it's never had before, where it's so important to the economy.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about copper and other metals and so forth, and obviously for good reason. But we feel in the silver community that silver needs to be elevated into that.
And I just saw the third question was talking about silver being a byproduct. I'm glad they brought that up because that's also one of the main reasons why, in the immediate term, I feel the demand is so hard to meet because not only are we in the red hundreds of millions of ounces right now to meet that, by the time we meet that, we're in the red hundreds of millions of ounces again the next year. So it's almost like it's twice as hard because by the time we catch up, we're another 200 million ounces in the red. See what I'm saying? So it's impossible to catch up.
Discussion. I've read somewhere that if copper is the superhighway to the energy transition, well, then silver is the glue. And it's not only EVs and photovoltaics, but Trevor touched on wind and nuclear power as well. Yes, silver is used in those applications. And I do believe that as the years go on, that silver will be known as a critical mineral and a critical material. So with that, I'd like to offer any thoughts that you may have, Phil, with respect to this topic.
Yeah, I would just suggest that the LBMA and people that are in this sector rethink how they think about silver. Don't take the assumptions that you've had in the past and apply them in the future because it's a different place for silver.
It really is. And Trevor, what's the future for silver and these green technologies besides?
I mean, obviously very strong. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see that from the data we're seeing for the last couple of years, particularly. But there'll be new technologies that come along. There'll be new innovations that are made. The silver is still heavily researched as a potential answer to many issues. And we touched on catalysis. There's a lot of research in that area, and that's going to become increasingly important for energy in the future. So, it's a metal that is multifaceted and a very important industrial metal as well.
Well, good. I'll close with one last question, Phil, for you. And I think it's a terrific question, and it's how high do silver prices need to be to stimulate? Wait, I take that back. Where did that question go? It was fantastic.
It's the byproduct.
Where did it go? It's gone. Here we go.
It's the
How much
byproduct.
of the projected deficit is dependent on investment demand? Last year we had a record
small.
year for investment demand.
Right,
We
but
had a
it's
record
small.
year for industrial demand and on the investment side. So that led to the growth in our overall
it's
demand
nowhere.
structure. But I think this question is good, Phil.
Well, look, certainly investment demand is a key element of silver. And you certainly have seen this deficit's been created by investors realizing the need for silver. But what's happening with the growth in photovoltaic is that it's shifting over to this industrial demand,
Yeah.
creating that deficit.
Yeah, it's industry.
Very good. Are there any other questions from the audience? I see I'm getting a red light.
I like the byproduct question they didn't ask, but especially asking a miner, a silver miner about byproduct. I guess the answer would already be, though, is prices are low, miners aren't as motivated to look for silver. Why wouldn't they look for gold that's 80 times higher, 80 times more valuable? Anyways, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. Let me know. I know this was a long video. If you stuck through, if you're still watching me now, pat yourself on the back. You didn't click off the video thinking you know it all or got bored or whatever. You wanted to soak up every piece of information, and I appreciate that, and I think that will pay off in the long run as an investor. Always trying to, knowledge is key. Closed-mindedness it won't take you very far, especially coming from sources like this that are bringing so much precious, pun intended, information. So I respect that. And remember, buy.slayer@gmail.com if you want to purchase any. We have deals right now. Email me, talk to me on the phone, whatever you need. I got you guys. Or you can go send an email to info@milesfranklin.com if you didn't want to go through me. Still let them know Slayer sent you. You'll talk to a different broker. I'm training to become a broker myself. So, talking to me just helps me get experience. Plus, I get to build a relationship with you guys. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. Like the video. Let me know if you like this format of content. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.